Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist Greg Spero of Spirit Fingers. We caught up with him during the COVID-19 quarantine on April 1, 2020 to talk about his latest 2020 CD, the inaugural album by the jazz supergroup. He opened up about this new world of no live jazz and a career where he has played to sold-out audiences from New York to LA and having already attracted over 300,000 views on YouTube. It keeps on growing. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
How's everything going?
So the world is the world is still spinning, so that's good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chaos in the music industry and in all industries. I've been talking to a lot of people on my radio show, not my radio show, but my live streaming show in the mornings, and hearing about the different ways people are dealing with the coronavirus pandemic and the isolation that we have to have because of it, and it's pretty wild. I'm personally doing fine. I'm really lucky to be able to isolate and have enough food to eat, and I know it's hard for a lot of people out there right now.
So exactly where are you at?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, you're in Los Angeles. Yeah,
and you're in what? Kansas City, Missouri?
Yeah, we're in Kansas City. So more specifically, we're in a suburb of Lee Summit, which is the home of Pat Metheny. So yeah, but yeah, it's we've been on this lockdown since probably the 15th. They got pretty serious about a week and a half ago, and I can tell you from what I've seen here, there's not many people out. I mean, there's grocery stores and all of that kind of thing happening, but we're all just being hopeful and just, hoping that it gets better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're doing everything we can to try to make it better. That's the thing, that trying to find aside from staying at home, which all of us need to do, that's the thing that I've been trying to figure out is how can I contribute to some little element of the solution, and that's why the idea of what we can do to support healthcare workers is really big on my mind right now. It was originally going to be just supporting musicians and trying to help people supplement their income, but the government is doing that to some extent, to the extent that they can. But the thing that is lacking even more so than our income now is just the basic necessities of people who are coming to the rescue of all the other individuals who are getting the virus. And we just lost Wallace Roney yesterday.
Yeah,
it's been a wild journey, man.
Yeah, and Mike Longo and the Cameroonian saxophonist, I just profiled him yesterday on my show. It's just been kind of rippling out in very defined ways. But I think one of the things that I'm trying to do more now is interview and get people to talk about the music while we're doing this. So thanks for taking a minute out today to talk about your music and kind of what's going on in the world, which is something that none of us have experienced ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be talking with you today.
So let's talk about your supergroup, Spirit Fingers, and let's talk about your latest inaugural album. Give me an idea of what you were going for with this album.
We're talking about the one released in March of 2018, right? For our debut self-titled album, or are we talking about the one that we're about to release on June 12th? The
one that you're getting ready to release.
Oh, okay. So the one that I'm getting ready to release is a diversion from what I did before. Basically this group, it's I'm developing this group in sort of two parts. The first album that we released in 2018, that you can go on and listen to right now. I put so much effort into making that very specifically like a very specific artistic vision that was very uninfluenced by aspects of modern culture, by the current musical landscape. You don't really hear, you go on to Spotify and you listen to the groups that are doing stuff right now. You hear a lot of vocal tracks. You hear a lot of beat-oriented compositions. A lot of editing and jamming. When I did that first album, I did almost no edits. I wanted to keep it almost 100% pure of any edits or overdubs, and had it just be these virtuosic compositions. Now, in this next album, I am loosening my grip on that vision a little bit to incorporate elements from the outside, things that inspire me from other music that is going on right now, including my diversions, you could call them, into pop music, but also my sort of peripheral vision from artists that I've been performing with, like Mackay McCraven, and Junius Paul, and my colleagues from Chicago, who are diving really deeply into beat-oriented music in their own way, and into editing in their own way. So this next record, I've expanded the breadth of influence to incorporate more of the musical landscape of what's going on right now in our culture. So I also brought in some artists that I love, including Judy Jackson, the vocalist she's from the U.S., but she lives in London, has lived in London for quite some time. She has 4 tracks as a guest vocalist, and then Braxton Cook is on there playing saxophone. Greg Ward is on the track playing saxophone. And we have Jonathan Scales playing steel pan on one of the songs. And Bubby Lewis is also guesting on bass on one of the songs. So a lot of my musical colleagues have joined this record as well, including the core group, which is Mike Mitchell on drums always. Max Scarroll's playing bass on this record. I've swapped between Adrian Farad and Max Scarroll for various occasions because Adrian is sometimes busy touring out with John McLaughlin and other people. So I have Max on this one, and then Dario Chiazzolino always on guitar.
So everything started for you in Highland Park, Illinois. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how jazz became your life.
Oh, man. Well, music was always my life, for better or for worse. My parents were both piano players. They didn't want me to be a musician necessarily because they both lived the musical life and they knew how challenging it is and how little security you have when you are an artist for a living, which, by the way, I'm not mad at. It's been that way throughout all of human history. You hear about the, I forget what they called them, like vagabonds or troubadours of like for centuries and centuries of human cultural development, musicians have been the ones with the least security because they're out playing their music, and what can be more fun and rewarding than playing your music for people and expressing and connecting with people and having these adventures. But they didn't encourage me to take that lifestyle though, because they knew it was very difficult to make a living in that. However, they were both pianists, and I heard their music throughout the house every single day. My mom was teaching kids to play classical pieces, and I didn't really take lessons from her for more than like a couple years during my childhood, but I would hear her students playing their pieces every day, and it was a lot of the same pieces. So I eventually just picked up those training pieces by ear, played them on my own, and sort of took off with it. My dad taught me how to play blues. I joined his blues band when I was 14 years old. It was called the Slack Daddies, and so then it was me and my dad on keyboard and organ, just kind of swapping off. I remember playing in smoky blues bars. This was before the ban of smoking in Chicago. So I would be up with my keyboards, like set up on pool tables in bars in Chicago, playing with my dad and his musical colleagues. So that's what sort of got me into it. I was just so inspired by my parents.
That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about, you've been around, you've been on a lot of shows, you've been, in so many capacities. Talk to me a little bit about maybe a show that was magical for you, or an experience that you had live that you got off stage and thought, man, that was magic.
There are experiences that I've had that have been magical and transformative in different contexts of my musical journey. I toured with an artist named Halsey for 3 years, it was my diversion into the pop world, and that gave me a lot of experience in understanding the intricacies of mainly how somebody gets famous, but also the musicality and the musical concepts and the ideologies that go behind the pop world and pop music. For better or for worse, some of them are terrible and some of them are amazing, as far as these ideologies go. But there was a transformative moment that I had on stage when I was performing with Halsey, and this was way into the journey. We started with when I started with her, we were performing in front of our first show was to 80 people at SIR in Los Angeles, this little demo show, and then we toured small venues as a double headliner with another small group called Young Rising Suns at the time. And by the end of my tenure with the group, we were reaching, we were selling out arenas, so 15,000 people every night. And it was pop music, so it didn't allow me a ton of room for creativity except for in the timbral nature of the patches that I was developing, which that was quite exciting and rewarding for me. But there was one moment in our last tour when we were playing these arenas, we had 10 minutes in the show. It's a totally pre-planned show, except for maybe one or two songs that you can swap between a few choices, right? And there was one point in that pre-planned show where we had 10 minutes with just me and Halsey on stage, and I had a grand piano, which was actually a keyboard and a grand piano shell, but I had a grand piano, and we would play acoustic for 10 minutes, and one of the arrangements was an arrangement that I did, an acoustic arrangement of the song that she did, Closer, with the Chainsmokers. Like that song. So we played this every night, and then there was one night. And by the way, there was a musical interlude after that, then before the next acoustic song that we played together. There was a musical interlude where I played for like 30 seconds. It could just play whatever I want, jamming on chords. And I kept it pretty simple, but there was one night, this was in Canada, I think it was Montreal, and we were playing an arena there, and I started this musical interlude, and she's about to walk out on stage to join me, and she doesn't come out. And so I keep playing this musical interlude, and I'm just doing solo piano in front of 15,000 people. And I'm supposed to play for 30 seconds, but like a minute goes by, and I'm thinking, man, I'm not sure what to do, if I should keep going. And so I hear in my in-ear monitors the tour manager telling me, hey, just keep playing, it's okay, just keep playing. So I stretch out a little bit more and start playing more jazz-oriented chords, like some thicker chords, some sevens and some nines, which you don't normally hear in these songs in a pop context. And then doing some substitutions and some different 2-5-1s and going to different keys. And so as I'm doing this, I'm getting reactions from the crowd, which I wasn't expecting. I mean, this is a sold-out arena of basically pop fans. These are young people in their teens, 13 years old to like 21 years old. And I'd never expect them to react to harmonic interest in that way. But they did. And so I kept digging in more and more, playing more complex and more deep harmonies. And it turned out that Halsey had a family emergency and she needed to cancel the rest of the show. So she didn't even come out at all. But I kept playing for 5 minutes before they actually canceled the show. And in that 5 minutes, I transformed my playing from a pop context into a fully jazz context, and the people in the arena just flipped over it. All these kids who only listened to pop music, they were like riding these waves with me and cheering, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had, because it made me realize that the masses out there, that we are feeding the most simple music that we can make so that they will consume it and share it. They don't need music to be that simple. They actually will understand if we give them something deeper. And it's a matter of what we're giving it to them and the way that we're giving it to them. So that gave me a huge confidence, more so than I'd ever had, in people's ability to embrace complex and deep music. And so that's what gave me initiative to start the Tiny Room series, which I then continued after I left Halsey. I continued that for 2 years. That was 2 years ago when I ended my tenure with the group, and I'm still working on that. We released 52 episodes of interesting music involving pop stars over the past couple of years, and I've also made a pilot now that I'm shopping to some networks to try to take the series to the next level over the coming years. But it transformed the way that I look at music and the way that I look at people, and my trajectory of what I want to put out into the world.
So let me ask you this. When all of the coronavirus kind of comes to a halt and we can actually re-enter the world and society, when live audiences start coming to shows, what do you hope that the revelations are that they get, that they realize, or that they hold with them when they see live shows again?
I think the real underlying question there is, how is our landscape going to be transformed when this ends? When people are going out to shows, what are they going to realize is different than they thought it was when they were going to live shows before? What is unique? What do we take for granted? And I think there's a lot. I think that right now we're all making an effort to connect with each other via the internet, and it's amazing. I've actually spoken with more friends over the past couple of weeks than I think I have probably in the past year, because I feel like it's so much easier to access them, and it's more appropriate just to FaceTime call somebody, or to try to jam a little bit with somebody over the web, even though latency is a problem. But the thing that is missing is this mystical human energy that we know is there. We don't know what it is, but when you're next to somebody, it's different than when you just see them and hear them, when you feel them. And that's the thing that I cherish the most about the shows that I play, is when I get into a room, and I experienced this at the Beethoven Festival in Chicago that I just played recently. It's like I'm here improvising and practicing all the time, but I go and I do a solo improvised piano show, and it is completely different, because the energy that you feel from the people around you, if you're the artist, the energy you feel from the audience, it is real and profound and palpable. And the audience, and I've been, when I'm in the audience too, I experience this. The energy that the artists on stage are creating, it feeds you, and then you feed them, and it's this feedback loop that you just can't get it when you're doing an online show, when you're doing Zoom meetings and talking to your friends on FaceTime. But you can connect with them to an extent, but there's a limit, because there's something more mystical that connects us when we're in the same room. That's the thing that I hope that people realize when this ends is, well, I hope they realize two things. One, that the technology is there for us to connect with each other when we're not in the same room in a deeper way than we have been doing, and in a more consistent way. And I hope that sticks. I hope people keep doing live streams more, and that people keep watching live streams more. And I think it's opening up an entirely new wave of content creation. However, I hope they also realize that when you're in a room with 10 people or 100 people or 15,000 people, there is nothing in this world that can replace the human experience of being there with another person and with a group of people.
Right on. My final question for you is this. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? Oh, man, that's a good question. That changes day to day. I a very determined. I'm a person who's determined to contribute something to this world, and I'm a person who loves life, and I want to experience as much of life as I possibly can, which means having experiences that are worth having, and that's why I do music in the first place, is because it is the. I mean, everybody knows being a musician is being a real musician. I'm not talking about being a pop star or trying to be a famous person, but being a musician, it's not the way to make money in this world, and it's not the way to grow a business. It's just but it is the way to have the most profound and deep experiences that you can have in this lifetime. Because as an artist, it's very challenging to go get on a plane every day, be in a different country every day, play a show every night, become emotionally exhausted because you're there virtually naked on stage, like bearing your soul through the music that you're playing, because you're improvising and you're connecting, and so you're draining yourself emotionally, and then during the day as you're traveling, trying to rebuild yourself back up and do it again the next night. But the experiences that you have in that lifestyle are just the most profound that I could imagine ever having in any lifestyle that I can choose. Because the types of interesting, amazing people that I've been able to work with and connect with and just meet, and the places that I've seen like that. So I'm a person who loves to live life. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm an artist. But I'm also a person who wants to contribute to the world in the best way that I can and give whatever uniqueness that I have to give to the world, which partially is my music, but then partially it's other things. I have a bit of a business head too. Before I was full-time in music, I was doing web development and had a company, and eventually got rid of it, and this was in my early 20s, and which I started building it when I was a teenager. Eventually got rid of the company and went full-time into music, but I've always had a bit of an abnormal business sense, is what I've found and gotten feedback from my colleagues. And so I'm working on using that right now. I'm developing an app that is a way of crowdfunding for musicians that people haven't thought of yet, and that I think is going to be a really huge help to artists in every single genre to monetize their music. And I think it could not come at a better time right now. So I want to contribute with that. I want to contribute with my music, and I want to live life as much as I can and connect with the people around me. Because there's also another aspect of what I think I am, is that there's a lot of love that I feel for, not just for people, but for life, but for my friends and family and myself. There's a depth of love, and I want to experience that love manifest in different ways in this world. And that, I feel like that's what comes out through my music. That's what comes out through the morning show that I'm doing right now, calling it the Quarantine Show, where I can connect with people who want to connect with me. And I've been doing it at 8 a.m. Pacific time every morning, and it's just that the love this love feedback loop that goes back and forth between the people that I can interact with in all these different contexts.
That's absolutely wonderful. Greg, thank you for taking some time out today.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Los Angeles, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Greg for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.